was ready to blow me down.
Hey guys, Britcher FM here. Welcome back to yet again another video and the start of a new series that I'm going to run across the whole season for probably Premier League and Championship. It is a prediction and preview for every single game of each match day. So today will be match day 1, every game from Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. So for the first game I'm going to review is going to be Sunderland versus Derby on the Friday night. I'm pretty sure it's on Sky as well, obviously at the Stadium of Light. And that's going to be very interesting because I'm not going to lie, from my opinion, it's going to be a massive wake-up call for Sunderland. A bit like Newcastle last year. They're gonna, in my opinion, lose, and as you can see, they're gonna lose 3-1 in my opinion. I think Derby are very good in midfield. I mean, players like Bradley Johnson, Jacob Butterfield. If Chris Martin can turn his career around at Derby, obviously, from what I'm guessing, he had a bit of a fallout last year. That's why he ended up going to Fulham. But you saw at Fulham just how good of a striker he was. If he can turn that around and get to that kind of form again, then who knows? But I really do think that Derby, you know, despite being away, I mean, you saw with the Darren Gibson thing the other night, Sunderland are just a club in jeopardy, and I can't see them starting well. I really don't think. I mean, they're losing all their pre-season games. I just really do think that they're going to struggle for the first 5-10 games until they adjust to the Championship. And you've seen that quite a lot from the teams that have come down, but I think that Sunderland especially are going to struggle. Okay, so next up, I've got the other game on the Friday night, and it is Nottingham Forest versus Millwall, obviously played at the City Ground. And I think this is a new season for Nottingham Forest. Even though I did predict them quite low down, I think everything from this point is up. You know, with the fact that Fawaz has now left and they've got new ownership, it could only really go positive because Fawaz was holding the club back so much. And I do think they're going to have a few years of really having to transition, you know, themselves. But I think their core squad, if they stay together, they could be really good. I think the addition, as you can see, of Daryl Murphy coming in is very, very key. Him and Zach Clough up top really could prove themselves an issue in this match against Millwall, and I think Millwall are going to struggle. You know, obviously they're going to have the high and the more, you know, probably going to have more morale than Forest, and that's the only thing going in their favour. But I do think they will come out 2-0 winners in the end, Nottingham Forest, purely because they're home form, if they have the fans behind them, and they have players like Daryl Murphy, who is a very good proven Championship striker, on the day, on form. I think they could really do anything. David Vaughan, another player who was underrated, obviously. As well as that, Chris Cohen, another midfielder, if he does play on the day, very underrated. Those two can really control the park. I just think they're going to be too good for Millwall and really overpower them. So that is why for this game I've gone for Nottingham Forest 2, Millwall 0. So for this next game, it's going to be a very, very interesting one. That clash of two, not struggling teams, but I'd like to say mid-table teams with something to prove. So Bristol City, obviously, versus Barnsley at Aston Gate, a very good venue indeed. I think that is going to be a massive opportunity for Fama Diédhiou, however you say it. I can't even bother to try and get that right nowadays. But I think defensively they're pretty well set up. Aidan Flynn is such a good defender. Midfield, I do feel like they lack a little bit in midfield. Obviously they lost Lee Tomlin. He was a good player, but he didn't do as much as he could have at Bristol City. But I do think Marlon Pack can help in that game. From what I've seen of him personally, he's a very good midfielder. But then on the other side, Barnsley are a very good young team, and you saw it last year. They're coached so well, and I just do think they're going to win this game. I think they're going to start the season off really well, and that's why I've gone for a 2-1 Barnsley win. I think players like Cameron McGinn, Lloyd Isgrove really will shine this season, like I said in my prediction video, so I don't want to cover that too much. But in this game, I think a lot of these players, these young players, are going to try to prove a point. I think they're going to be a lot more energetic and a lot more motivated to do well. You know, players like the Cameron McGinns, they've made the step up from League 2 to Championship. They're going to want to go 110%, and that is why for the first game of the season I think they're going to absolutely smash it. That's why I've gone for a 2-1 Barnsley win. Next up, I've got Burton versus Cardiff City at the Pirelli Stadium. Always a nice stadium to go to. Very, very unique. But regardless of that, I really can't see this starting well for Burton this season. I'm I mean, I was trying to pick out the key players and I was really struggling. I mean, Lloyd Dyer, he's a great winger, but he's getting to that real tail end part of his career. He's still got obviously something to prove, but he's really getting to the tail end. Lucas Akins is probably their best player. They're the man they're going to have to really rely on this season. I think his goals are going to be pivotal, and he's a very good player at this level. If he does have a good start of the season, I wouldn't be surprised if he went somewhere else. But regardless, obviously on the topic of this game, I think Cardiff could be so overpowering throughout the pitch. I mean, with players like Pilkington on the wings, cross striker, so clinical. Same with people like Craig Noon. If they get the chance, Cardiff, they will score. They're very organised now with a Warnock as manager, even though their defensive two are Manga and Sol Bamba. When they want to, they are very good centre-half partnership. And I just cannot see Burton being able to break them down. That is why I've gone for a 2-1 Cardiff win. And I'm not going to lie to you, it could probably finish more. But with the fact it is at home, I do think Burton generally tend to have better home form than away form. So who knows what could happen. But I've gone for 2-1 to Cardiff. Okay, so next up, I've got my team, Norwich City, playing away to Fulham. Now, as much as I want to be optimistic for this game, I'm really not too optimistic at all, purely on the basis that we have not won at Fulham for so many years, and I struggle to predict us winning there. I do, however, think we're going to get a draw. I think it'll be 2-2. I think both teams will equal each other out. I think if anyone's going to win on the day, it's going to be Fulham. I think a few injuries for Norwich personally, like Alex Pritchard and Tim Close, are going to be big. Obviously, we have got replacements like Marcel Franca and James Maddison, but overall, I think they're two big players. I think Fulham are just going to carry on this season how they ended last season, just absolutely destroying teams. I think going forward, they are so good. The re-signing on loan of Callas was very good. If players like Ryan Fredericks stay fit and plays to how well he did last year, then defensively they're going to be very good as well as going forward. It's a tricky one. I think there'll definitely be goals. That's why I've gone for 2-2. And a little part of me is just saying that Norwich's defence is going to lack a bit too much. We have got a very German back line, and I just don't know how that will cope. It's going to be a new philosophy at Norwich, and I just think the fact that Fulham already know the way they play, they've got a very good manager in Jakupovic. But I've gone for 2-2 against my better judgment. In the next game, it is Ipswich versus Birmingham at Portman Road. Now, I want to just say before I not slate them, but I criticise them. Obviously, Ipswich is my rival team. I'm not going to obviously be so for them, but I'm not biased at all. I will praise them when they deserve praise. But after their pre-season, I mean, getting beat 6-1 by Charlton is not a good start going into the season, especially when you're playing a fairly first-team oriented side. I mean, defensively, I just can't see how you're going to be able to cope with the attack that Birmingham have got. I mean, Chi Adams, Clayton Donaldson, Lucas Djukovic. I mean, the list goes on. I think Craig Gardner will absolutely control the park. He will dominate the Ipswich midfield. His passing, his distribution is incredible, and I think that they'll really struggle to deal with that. And also, as well as that, Ipswich is similar to a team like Sunderland. If they go 1-0 down, the fans are going to completely turn, and it's just not going to be pretty for them at all. And I think their own downfall with the fact that no one at the club is confident going into this season, and that is why I've gone for a 2-0 Birmingham win. However, it would not surprise me if it was more. Okay, so next up I've got, probably for me, will be the biggest game of the weekend. It's Wolves versus Middlesbrough. Obviously, with just how much great signings both teams have brought in, I think this is going to be a real good clash of two powerhouses of the league, and I actually am predicting a bit of a shock. I know you Middlesbrough fans won't be happy in the comments, but I'm going to give you the reason why I predicted you to lose 2-1 to Wolves. For a start, you look at Newcastle last year, similar stature to kind of Middlesbrough as a club. They really thought they were going to ward the league, and from what I've got from this year, that is how a lot of Middlesbrough fans think. And to be fair, like you saw in my predictions, I think the same. But I just think it's going to be another wake-up call, similar to Sunderland, and how I've predicted Hull. I just think these Premier League teams come down and they really take a bit, 5 or 6 games to really adjust to this league, because it's so different to the Premier League. And I think a year with the new signings in that league who are Premier League players, not Championship players, I just think it's so difficult for them to adjust. And I think Wolves, the predominant amount of their squad have played in the Championship, except a few new signings. And I think with the good positivity around the club, I think it is just set up to be a Wolves win, and that is why I've gone for Wolves to beat Middlesbrough 2-1. Okay, so next up I've got Brentford away to Sheffield United at Bramall Lane, of course, and I've actually gone for a 1-1 draw. Now, basically, the reason I've gone for this is because I think Brentford have a much stronger side, and they're actually quite good away from home, from what you could see last season. I just think that the positivity around Sheffield United and the fans, I think it'll be a packed out Bramall Lane will be a very good atmosphere. I think the fact they've been down the League One and stuck there, now they've got up. This is the year they're going to be able to face their rivals. I think the whole team and players are going to be on such a high that they're going to play that extra 110% throughout the whole game, and that's why they're going to really earn themselves a point. If anyone was going to win this game, it would be Sheffield United, and I'm not doubting Brentford at all, because I think they'll do very well this year. I just think that Sheffield United on such a high that they could really, on this first 2 or 3 games, feel like they could beat anyone. But that is why I've gone for a score draw of 1-1 for these two teams. So the next game is QPR at home to Reading. I'm not going to lie, I can see this being an absolute obliteration. Obviously, I might regret this on Monday when I do my review. But the reason for this is I think the fact that Reading have secured John Swift on a new deal is amazing. He's probably, for me, one of the best creative players in the Championship. He was phenomenal last year, and I think that having him in the midfield, you saw how good he was last year. His link up with players like Jordan Obita, regardless whether he plays left back or left mid, and also Jan Kermigan up front, the chances he creates is so much. And when Reading, I know the only time I've ever seen Reading play with this kind of team, they got beaten 7-1, but I do think that that was an off day, and I think that going forward they are so clinical, and that's why I think that a poor QPR team, I know they've got players in there, they've got some good defenders like Stephen Corker, but I just can't see them as a team gelling and defeating this Reading team. And that's why I've gone for a 3-1 win. And I'm not going to lie, if it wasn't 3-1, it would be 3-0. It all depends on if QPR manage to get a goal. However, if they do get a first goal, I don't know, I probably would say that Reading's heads could drop, but we'll have to find out. For this game, I've gone for a 3-1 Reading win. Okay, so for this next game, it is Preston at home to Sheffield Wednesday, played at Deepdale. Now, to be honest, this game is going to be a battle of midfields. Both teams have very, very strong midfields. Alan Brown, Ben Pearson, two brilliant players, both defensively and attacking. And I do think that they're going to clash with the George Boyds and the Barry Bannons. But I do just think that Sheffield Wednesday will come out on top. The reason for this is because, obviously, Alex Neil's a new manager, gone into Preston. He's playing a very different kind of philosophy to how Simon Grayson did play his football. It's very much on the floor, very attacking, and I do think it'll take a few games to get them adjusted to that. But I'm not saying it's going to take long, because I do think Preston will have a pretty decent season for their kind of stature or standards, if you like. But I do see them coming up short in this, and I do think that the lack of knowledge about this new tactic could really hurt them in the first few games. But I do still think that Sheffield Wednesday are a very strong team, and that it would be no shame losing to them at all, because they are going to be there and thereabouts this season. So that is why I've gone for 2-0 win for Sheffield Wednesday. So in this second to last game, I've got another big game as well. It is Aston Villa at home to Hull. It's big on paper, as much as most pundits want to put it, but in reality, to me, it's going to be a massive overhaul from Aston Villa. I think Villa will absolutely cruise through this game. Hull short on motivation. You know, they really did have a poor season last year, and I think that's going to show in the way they play and their morale. You know, I mean, as a club as well, they're gonna need that wake-up call. And I know I do keep repeating it, but it's true. Every single Premier League team that comes down has 2 or 3 games where they really need to get used to the division and kick it in. And that is why I do think that this will finish 3-1 to Aston Villa. As well as this, obviously, other factors like Aston Villa's midfield completely controls the game. And as well as this, also going forward, players like Jonathan Kodja, Scott Hogan, if they get the chance, they're going to score. And at home, they play so well. So that is why I'm so confident that it will finish 3-1 to Aston Villa. Okay, so next up, and for the final game of the weekend on the Sunday, is Bolton at home to Leeds United. Now, this game is going to be very interesting to see. Obviously, Bolton, like I say, on that high, they've just been promoted. But however, I just don't think they're strong enough. I think their team is too weak. I can see Leeds easily beating them, to be honest with you. I mean, I've personally gone for a 2-0 Leeds. I just don't see their attack being able to capitalise on the Leeds defence. I think players like Pontus Jansson, Berardi, their defence across the board is solid. That is why they did so well last year. But if Chris Wood's in form and players like that, I mean, I really cannot see them falling to defeat, put it that way. Even though they are away, I think that in a way, Leeds, as well as a club, are on the high with the new owners coming in. They've just got back Ellen Road. I really do think that Bolton will struggle in this match, and I think it'll be fairly clear from the off who will win, and that's why I've gone for a 2-0 Leeds win. Okay guys, so that brings us to the end of the video. Let me know your predictions for the match day down in the comments below. If you do get them right, I will show them at the start of the next video. I think it'll be very interesting to see what you guys think as well, because obviously I'm not going to get these odds right. I'm just going off kind of how I feel, usually from what most seasons start like, just from my own experiences. But obviously if you did like, leave a like and comment down below like I've already said. But without further ado, it's been Brentford FM. See you later.
Let it go.